Welcome to this space. I'm extremely glad that you were able to join us today, especially as we talk about something that's not always easy, but that is helpful, and that's changing the bad into good. I want to review with you some of the common phrases that we often hear during distressing times. So how about, don't think about it that way. Look on the bright side. Hey, it could have been a lot worse. At least this didn't happen. Things will get better. Things have a way of working themselves out. I'll keep you in prayer. I'm sure it'll be fine. Things will be fine. There's no need to cry about it. Don't cry about it. Just don't cry. It'll be okay. I'm sure you'll get through this. You're a strong person. It'll be fine. It's okay. Like I said, these are just some common statements that we hear at one point or another. Oftentimes when we're in distress and we're not open to hearing these statements. And usually when someone else is trying to make us feel better. The thing about these statements is that they often negate or invalidate a strong emotion or emotions that are informing us of something new about ourselves, specific to that situation. And in order to shift our perspective, we need to know a couple of things. First thing that we need to know is how we're feeling about that situation, or in general. How are we at that time? The second thing we need to know are our thoughts regarding the situation we find ourselves in. And I know that's easier said than done, but my hope is that with today's tips, we're able to begin to change the bad into good and learn how to shift our perspective. And third, we need to have the ability, or at least the openness and desire, to accept that what we're experiencing is not ideal. However, that there are different ways of looking at the situation that we find ourselves in. Again, we just have to be willing to try and change our view. And I want you to do this wherever you are, whether you're lying down or even standing or sitting. And if you're able to, I want you to close your eyes and for a couple of seconds and just take a couple deep breaths. Now, for those unfamiliar with methodical deep breathing and consciously doing this, one of the ways to do this is to inhale in through your nose and imagine that you're smelling your favorite candle, your favorite scent, and slowly inhale again in through your nose and hold that breath for about 3 seconds. And when you're ready to exhale, do it through your mouth in a slow, progressive manner. So again, you're going to inhale in through your nose, hold that breath for 3 seconds, and exhale. Go ahead and do that a couple times. Pause this video and think about some of the emotions that arise as you're thinking about that situation that you find yourself in that may be distressing or challenging. Now that you've taken a couple deep breaths, I encourage you to claim and name any emotions that arise. How is it that you're feeling? What is it that you felt? Did you feel happy? Did you feel at peace? Joyous? Did you feel confused, frustrated, angry, upset, sad, lonely? I mean, there's so many emotions that can arise, and you may be experiencing more than one. And after me, I invite you to say, I feel, and name that emotion. Again, I feel. Share how you're feeling. And let that emotion sit with you for a little bit. And when I mean share, you don't have to share this with anyone aside from yourself. Pay attention to any reactions that you might have as you're expressing these emotions. Do that a couple of times until you become comfortable and familiar with sharing how you feel. Again, remembering to state, I feel. When you're able to identify some of your emotions, I'm going to invite you to the next step, which is writing down some of the thoughts that come to mind when you think about the situation that might be causing you to experience some distress or some undesired emotions. Once again, I'm going to ask you to put this video on pause and to take a couple deep breaths before writing down some of those thoughts. So go ahead, put this video on pause and write some of the thoughts that come to mind. Now that you've written some thoughts down, it's time to process them. So repeat after me. I'm having the thought. Again, I am having the thought, and express what you wrote down. I'm having the thought, and express what you wrote. Take a couple of minutes to do this as you go through your list and you process some of those thoughts that you are having or you've had about the situation. Again, remembering to write, I am having the thought. At times, it's difficult to change our perspective because our mind and our emotions are telling us one thing. For instance, I might feel afraid or worried about something, and I might be thinking, this will never get better. However, if I tell myself I'm having the thought that things will never get better, it will be easier for me to accept that this thought will come and go, just like my emotions, just like the situation that I find myself in, and just like many other experiences that I've had in the past, and I have been able to overcome them. So when we talk about perspective, it's all about accepting any emotions that arise, any thoughts that arise in the moment, and being able to reframe them or change them into more helpful and proactive thoughts. For instance, if you're currently finding yourself feeling lonely and you're having the thought that you're not going to be able to get through this, I challenge you to say, I feel lonely. And I'm having the thought that I won't be able to get through this. Although, on second thought, if we reframe that, you might be able to say, I'm having the thought that I won't be able to get through this. Although, it is possible that with friends, family, and support systems, I will be able to overcome this season. Do you see how that's different? You're still acknowledging how you're feeling, and you're still acknowledging the thought that arises that it is enabling you or not allowing you to be proactive. But you're changing that and changing your perspective by saying, although I feel and think this way, I also acknowledge and I'm open to accepting the support of others that may be able to help me in a different manner and will allow me to get to a different spot, either mentally, physically, that is needed. And if you're watching this video, I know that you've been able to overcome different situations and other difficulties in life. And this is just another opportunity for you to do the same and practice those skills. So I encourage you, even though it's difficult, to practice some of these tips. Now, changing your perspective does not occur spontaneously, and honestly, it does not remove any undesired emotions. In fact, oftentimes when we push undesired emotions down, they manifest themselves in other ways. And emotions, quite honestly, they inform us of values, of things that we like, that we dislike, and they allow us to learn more about our priorities. Even those undesired emotions like sadness, frustration, and anger, worry, fear, those emotions are protective. They inform us of things. So I encourage everyone to approach them with curiosity. And like I said, changing our perspective will allow us to do things in spite of feeling a certain way. So going back to the example that I shared earlier, I might feel worried or afraid about something, but because I'm accepting and acknowledging my situation, I'm able to do proactive things in spite of that fear and that worry that I might be experiencing. I want to leave you with this. In Genesis, specifically around chapter 35, we read about the story of Joseph. And for those familiar with the story of Joseph, you may be familiar with the misfortunes that he had. But for those who haven't heard of this story before, I'm going to condense the story, but I still invite you to read more about it, since there are many details that will be omitted. But a summary, a very brief summary, is that Joseph was sold by his brothers and taken to Egypt. And like I said, after a series of misfortunes, Joseph helped interpret dreams that forecasted 7 years of surplus and 7 years of famine. And because he was able to interpret these dreams, he was able to help his community store food and prepare for the difficult years, for the 7 years of famine ahead. And unbeknownst to Joseph, his brothers who lived in a different city and was experiencing hunger came and bowed down before Joseph and asked for help. And rather than Joseph refuse to help his brothers, Joseph responded by saying, and this is found in Genesis chapter 45, verse 5, "And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." This is amazing. Essentially, what Joseph was saying is, listen, you didn't send me here. God was in control all along. Number one, how often do we forget that God is in control? Even in the midst of that situation that you're in, God is in control and He's there with you. Secondly, I'm sure, and I imagine, I don't know, if we had a conversation with Joseph, I'm sure he was experiencing some undesired emotions like frustration, anger, sadness, resentment, a desire to want to do something that wasn't proactive. And it probably would have been easy for Joseph to retaliate and say, "I'm not going to help." However, Joseph's ability to change perspective was allowing him to be blessed, but also to be a blessing unto others. Like I said, changing our perspective is challenging. It doesn't happen spontaneously. It takes effort. But changing our perspective does have benefits. It allows you to develop greater insight. It helps you learn and explore more about your emotions and those thoughts that arise. It lets you be curious about yourself. Like I said, it allows you to learn more about who you are. It allows you to practice shifting gears so that we're more proactive in challenging times. And also, who knows, help others along the way. So whatever your challenge is today, I encourage you to evaluate your feelings about how you're doing, to be open to thinking differently about the situation, and see if you can shift your perspective to be a blessing unto others.